Hello, I'm Lenny Pinna, and I'm the editor of this book, A Face from Uranus, Correspondence between Ted Burr and Henry Bellamy, 1943 to 1945. Welcome to Random Readings. If this is your first random reading, know that this series follows the dramatic reading series 1 and 2, in which I brought more fully to life the figures Ted Burr and Henry Bellamy, so that one can more fully appreciate their later random letters. I'm going to pick up with a Henry letter that follows a Ted letter in which Ted asked Henry about his personal life. December 14th, 1943. Dear Ted, well now, let's see. I must answer some of your questions. I don't have an extensive correspondence. I rarely write letters. I see very few people. I am known as a quasi-reclusive. Probably see my publishers only once or twice a year. I used to have much more involvement with the musical world when I was in official positions. I like very few people. Humanity, yes. Individuals are hard to take sometimes. My new friends in the world are men. But I like women, girls, whatever, and have a well-stocked memory. Yes, I had thousands of letters about King's Row. A few from lonely-souled boys who sensed a sympathetic hearer after reading of the character Jamie Wakefield. They passed out of my acquaintance after a letter or so. I seldom go to the opera because I have seen too much opera. Besides, I don't like opera very much. I only nod to my neighbor, Mr. Melchior. I dislike him extremely for hundreds of reasons. I have some few friends in the music world, but I am not a misanthrope. I am merely a rather reclusive person. I'm excessively particular about who crosses my threshold, the real one or the mental one. That should not sound snobbish, because it is not. I suspect that I have an extraordinary sympathy for the poor and lowly of the world. I like them better and think that they are kind and good more than anything else. I was born in moderate circumstances. The first part of King's Row is a portrait of my grandmother and myself. I call myself very democratic in theory, and my old friend, a banker, says in practice I am a damned aristocrat. We fight and have fought for nearly 40 years. It is said that I seem much younger than I am. I don't know, or care. My nearest friends are young people, and many of them are young girls. I like everything about them, and we get along very well. I have a wife who wrote once a particularly amusing book called My Husband's Friends, a book that nearly ruined my reputation. It was a story of a scientist husband and his love affairs. It was purely fiction. My domineering mother died last year. I have the complete responsibility of a brother and sister who live out west, both of whom are younger than I. I scarcely know them. Does that answer you? I'm going to do something that I haven't done up to this point, and that is offer commentary on a letter. That's because this has something to do with the TV series I've been writing in the name of Jamie Wakefield. After having conducted much research about Henry Bellamy and his life, I wrote this postscript for the book, and this particular section talks about the letter I just read. During his entire correspondence with Ted, Henry only once mentioned that he had a wife, and he did so only because Ted had specifically inquired about his personal life. Henry never even mentioned her by name. He merely states, I have a wife. Ted did not know Catherine by name until she wrote to him on behalf of her ill husband. I think it speaks volumes that Henry says nothing about Catherine's personal qualities or anything about her highly successful career as a vocal coach for professional opera and Broadway singers. Henry is quite verbose throughout the letters, expounding the virtues or heaping criticism about a myriad of singers, composers, conductors, and performances, yet never once mentions that his wife, Catherine, is also connected to the musical world. She actually gave voice lessons in the living room of their apartment, where the couple kept their two grand pianos. Ironically, Henry chose to share only one story about his wife. He claimed that her novel had almost ruined his reputation. Indeed, in 1931, Catherine Bellarmine published her first novel, My Husband's Friends, a semi-autobiographical account that centered on the private suffering of a wife of a famous scientist, Jean Perifond, who has a sequence of affairs primarily with women. In the early chapters of the novel, the character Victor Sayer, a childhood friend of her husband's, arrives at their home and is invited by her husband to live with the newlywed couple. It has already been written about that Victor Sayer was based on Henry's friend, Albert Berghauser. If you'll recall an earlier letter in which Henry tells Ted that Jamie Wakefield was based on a childhood friend, it is also indeed the same childhood friend, Albert Berghauser, who lived with the Bellarmines during their first 5 years of marriage. This becomes the fodder for the dramatic tension in the series In the Name of Jamie Wakefield. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.